This is a video I'm making on being poor in America and why I think there are poor people and why there are rich people and whatever. Um, and I guess I never really realized it until now that I was always poor, but I was born into being poor. So my parents were not rich. In fact, they struggled. And my dad was a piano player and actually had to play piano for all these old people that would have their little functions. And so I kind of grew up in that environment where we were the ones, we were like the service people, serving others so they could have their good times and this, that, and the other. And the importance of school was very, my dad was very strict on going to school and getting an education and this, that, and the other. So I went to the private school. But back in the 70s, private school was focused mostly on discipline, to learn to do what others were telling you to do, and not so much think for yourself, but basically do what other people were telling you to do and do it right or don't do it at all. So I was already set up for being poor. I didn't really understand it because I didn't want to be poor. And then when I went in the Marines, I was still kind of poor. Never really made a whole lot of money. I was making like $800 a month. This was back in the 80s. And basically you had to live on that. So why I think some are poor is, like in North Carolina, this is like where I'm at now, very rural. There's not a lot going on out here. And even back in the 80s when I was in the Marines out here, there was a lot of people fishing out the bank. So there's a lot of poor people in North Carolina, rural North Carolina. But then all these companies started moving out here. And so you have a huge disparity or whatever of people that are rich and poor. So out here now you have a lot of doctors because the land's cheap, so they can build their hospitals. So it just seems like that normal thing to do instead of building out in like California. So you do have a lot of rich people out here. You can see it by the houses. There's some huge houses out here. But then you also have the poor. And the poor out here, there's just no way they're ever going to get, ahead. Because the rich basically just kind of take all the jobs, the resources, and it's all, so if you're poor, you're basically like ignored. Like nobody's going to pay attention to you. You're the words that come out of your mouth have no value. And I don't think I've ever seen it more coming out here, being a former electrician who used to actually work and put together a lot of these buildings. I don't think I've ever realized how even working as an electrician, I was a tool. I wasn't really anything more than a means to get something done. And so now at 60 years old, I'm thinking those who are raised poor usually stay poor because it's more of and the poor people are more family oriented because they stick together, versus the rich people will scatter everywhere in search of a better opportunity for themselves or whatever. And so being from like the outside looking in, I can really see how the difference between the poor and the rich are in the United States. and why so many poor people end up just, they run out of resources, and there's just not, there's nothing there for them. So what they end up doing is just, a lot of them end up like on public assistance. A lot of them end up signing up for different programs where you get free services, medical, schooling, but it doesn't really do anything to help the poor get out of being poor. You can go to school all you want, but if you're not being taught how to use the skills that you're taught, then you're just going to be poor. And people like doctors, lawyers, I kind of noticed, I'm a Camp Lejeune veteran, so I noticed that lawyers constantly are trying to find veterans like myself to sign up with them, so if they win, then it's cha-ching. They don't have to do anything, but basically wait to get a settlement, and then they take like 20%. I think it's 20% out of the cut, and that's how they make money. They're not working hard. They're really not doing anything. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on being poor. You're either born into being poor, and anybody who gets out of being poor, my hat's off to them, because if they were raised poor, because in the way I see things, it seems like it's just a setup to be poor for your whole life. And then with being poor comes a lot of ailments like crappy health care, substandard health care, eating crappy food because that's all you can afford, so you're eating all the processed foods, and then you end up with the health problems, and then you're done. So that's my view on the poor people. Thanks for watching.